1, 2. Simkin. Who hates Simkin? She hates Simkin. He hates Simkin. I hate Simkin. You hate Simkin. She hates Simkin. We hate Simkin. Who hates Simkin? I hate Simkin. They hate Simkin. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of I Hate Simkin, a podcast which I think I'm going to retitle to maybe Old Talk About the Canadian Music Industry. I think that should be the subtitle.
That's way better.
Well, it started because I can't remember why it started, because it was something that Mike Kruger from Nickelback started, because when they were, when the Much Music Video Awards meant something. And you remember how big that was. That was like, one of the biggest events every year.
That was a thing.
That was the thing. And Nickelback played it a lot. And for some reason, which I never really fully understood, every year that they played, and I think Nickelback played 6 years in a row, every year, Mike Kruger, the bass player, would wear a t-shirt that says, I Hate Simkin. Never really understood fully why or what that meant. And then there was another incident with Mike where he was on an airplane coming back from Hawaii. He used to live in Hawaii for a few years. And some manager, I won't say who, you probably know him, but some manager of a band that was on 604 came up to him on the plane and said, you're Mike from Nickelback, aren't you? And Mike said, yeah. He said, so your lawyer's Jonathan Simkin? He's like, yeah. He said, that guy's a And Mike said, yeah, but he's our So, I was always fascinated by, I don't think of myself as like a polarizing figure, but clearly I am. I've never fully understood why.
Have you never read your tweets? Have you never read?
Well, yeah, I guess that's true. But I mean, there was that one incident where I got into a bit of about something, but other than that, I don't, I guess it's a lot about, for me, it's always what you say versus what you do. And like that tweet's a great example, because that tweet that got me into all that trouble was actually about something that nobody even understood. The mistake I made was I kind of assumed people know what I'm talking about. And I kind of treated Twitter like, well, it's people I know. The only people who are reading it are people who know me. So they obviously know I'm not racist, and they obviously know I'm not, one look at my company and who runs it. And, you kind of know pretty quickly, whatever I am, I'm not racist. I made that tweet about something very specific that had happened, and it sort of got taken as a general policy statement on my part or something, which, people are so lazy now. It's like nobody bothers to look into anything to kind of go, hold on a sec. There must be more to that comment, because look at the guy's background. He was a refugee lawyer. He's represented Palestinians getting into Canada. He represented gay couples and made law in Canada for gay couples who were persecuted in other countries. So maybe, just maybe, there's a little bit more to that tweet than just the face value of it. I acknowledge I made a mistake the way I said it, without any explanation or context. Right. But surely one tweet can't explain people's feelings about me, can it?
There was a few good ones that you had put out there over a couple of years. Come on now. Yeah.
Fair enough. What can I say?
They made my day every time. So
I've always said, I think part of the reason I've done okay in this business is I don't come from this business. I'm not a failed musician. I'm not a failed artist. I was very happy being a poverty lawyer. I fell into it by accident. So I didn't bring any of the baggage or, and that's the way I've always sort of, managed 604. Even from that very first deal we did with Universal in 2001, where I excluded digital, just because it made no sense to me to give it up, and I remember Randy Lennox sort of saying to me, come on, it's in your interest. We'll make sure you get, prominent placement on iTunes. And I was like, is that all you got? Like, if that's all you got, I'll take my chances. Like, needless to say, I'm sure glad I pushed that issue.
Yeah. But that was the language that he used on everything. Stay here to be good for you. This is the future of music. Here we are.
Well, that's what's interesting. And that's why I love talking to people, because I think you and I probably a little bit older than you, maybe not. I don't know. But I mean, we're similar vintage. And, I love talking to people who've been in the business for that period of time because of how unrecognizable it is now from where it was when we first started in the business.
Oh my God, yeah.
And I had to go back and go, how did I even first meet Jodie? Do you remember? Because I figured it out.
I don't know when I first met you, but I know that my first deal with you was at Pure Music.
Right. And in fact, you know what? I've been such a bad host today. I've been horrible. So I haven't even introduced you. I got to introduce, better late than never, my esteemed guest, Jodie Ferneyhough. Jodie's done a whole bunch of stuff in his career. He's had a pretty awesome career. When I first met Jodie, he was at Pure Music. I did a little bit of research. My research says you were there 1997 to 2001. Does that sound right?
Yep.
And then you went to Universal Music Publishing, and you were there 2001, 2010.
Yep.
And then you started CSS Rights Management 2010, and that's kind of where you are to this day.
Yeah. Started officially in 2011 at some point. With the encouragement of Mike Denny, who wanted to start a publishing division in his MDM recordings, and encouraged me, quote unquote, to come to the CCMAs in Hamilton with him. Get back into it, Ferneyhough, it'll be fun. So I had no money because I was starting all over again. And the end of the night came and crashed in Denny's room and threw me a blanket and a pillow. And, I'm falling asleep on the floor going, wow, here it is, managing director of Universal to sleeping on Denny's floor. Here we go. So we started CCS and then, 12 years later, here we are.
Is Mike involved with CCS?
No, he just had MDM recordings and then he had a publishing division, but didn't know how to run it. So I did a joint venture with him where we split the copyrights and did those kind of things.
It's funny. I've done a lot of stuff in my career, but the one thing I haven't done is publishing. And except with one exception, which is when we signed Theory of a Dead Man. So that was the first band 604 signed.
Right.
And that's 2001. And, Chad and I did a publishing deal with them. Why? Chad and I, in other words, 604 did a publishing deal with Theory of a Dead Man. Right. Why? I don't know. Because we could. Because I had people whispering in my ear, "Oh, you should do publishing. It's very lucrative." Chad and I didn't know what the we were doing. I had been a lawyer, not even that long, really, an entertainment lawyer at that point, 5 years. So I was doing pretty good, but I'd never run a record label or a publishing company. So we did that, and wow. Did that create bad feelings with the band?
Oh, really?
Oh, sure. Like they got management. And the first thing I think Bill McGathy said was, are you kidding? Like you guys aren't even publishers. What are you doing? And, it caused Chad and I to really have a few, intense conversations about it. Mm. And at the end of the day, we're like, we don't want this band to hate us. We don't want to have a bad relationship with our artists. And we ended up doing a quick settlement, basically tearing up the deal. We have a small interest in the very first Theory record through a sort of a joint venture with Universal Publishing. And I'm so glad we did, because the truth is...
I did that deal with Theory with you.
Okay, so there you go. So I'm so glad we did that route. I'm so glad we didn't hold them to that. For a guy who's called out a lot of people for their greed and in the music business, it would have been kind of hard for me to look at myself in the mirror. And it's the same reason we never did the 360 deal thing.
Yeah.
I just couldn't stomach it. I mean, and we, that's why we started the management company, because, when the bottom fell out after Napster, and boy, talk about bad timing. I think Napster happened 6 months after we started 604. And it was like, what are we going to do? And we decided to do that because it's like, and I've said this before, I probably said it on this podcast. Like, I love making money in the music business. It's a lovely way to make a living, but I also love sleeping at night. I don't do it much, but I love it when I do it. And the thought of having all these bands hating my guts because we did these 360 deals, because I was also still more active as an independent lawyer at the time. And I was having to do these 360 deals. And it was horrid. I mean, I would say to these bands, listen, I don't want you coming back to me in 5 years and saying, how the did you let us sign this deal? I'm telling you right now, it's a deal. You want to sign it, great, but sign it with your eyes wide open.
Yeah.
You're going to have to come back from tour and cut a check to your label. If you can stomach that, I said, I'm not the one cutting the check. It's not my money. If you can stomach that, great. I couldn't stomach it. And it was one of the reasons I sort of stopped being everybody's lawyer, because I found myself feeling like I was the accomplice to a crime. And I just couldn't stomach it.
Yeah, I hear you. You know, there's some bad deals out there, you know? And it's hard as a representative of a band, whether you're a manager or a lawyer, and seeing some of the and as you know, some of these people just want a deal so desperately they'll sign anything. And it breaks my heart. It really does.
Do you think that's changed a little just because it feels like maybe more artists are kind of going, do I need a label?
Well, I being a publisher, and I've never been a label guy ever. I've never worked at a record company, anything. And as this business, as you said earlier, as this business changes, and it's changed dramatically in the last 12 years in particular, I don't even know what a label is. Like, an example, we were in LA a couple of years back with an artist that we were developing, a young lady, and she was fantastic. And I took it to Capitol Records. And I walked it in, and this guy says, "Oh, this is amazing. Holy she's really good, blah, blah, blah." And he says, "What do you want me to do with it?" I said, "Well, I want you to do your job. I want you to pick it up. I want you to market it. I want you to release it, etc." And he goes, I can't do that. I said, that's what you do? He goes, No. I need you, the publisher, to get it up to shoulder height, and then I'll do the rest. I can't deadlift it. And I'm thinking, well, what the do I need you for? I'm just going to hire a decent marketing person, a decent publicist, and I'll do it myself, and I don't need you. And I think that it is definitely changing. We are signing artists now where we're developing them up. We're putting the records out. We're hiring the market. We have a branding person that works with them. We're doing all of it under a publishing auspice. They still get to own and control the majority of their IP. Plus, they own the master. We may take a piece of the master to offset costs and whatnot, but I'm seeing less and less of a need of the traditional label than we ever did.
It's so interesting because like hearing you say all that, it kind of reminded me of, like, I think even before I met you the first time, my first experience with the publisher was Michael McCarty. He would have been at EMI Music Publishing Canada with Barb at the time.
Right.
And it was, I had two acts that were very significant in my career that he took a very similar approach. But it's funny because that was when the business was very different. But still, it's funny how that approach made sense then, because with Matthew Goodband, Michael paid for the record. We couldn't get him a record deal. We ended up doing the publishing deal. And Mike's like, hey, who cares if we can't get a record deal? I'll fund the record. And so we made Last of the Ghetto Astronauts out here. That is what kickstarted his career. It got significant radio play on CFox. And next thing you know, we're signing to A&M. Same thing with Len. Mike was funding that for 2 albums before Steal My Sunshine.
Right.
But it's funny because then it was with a different goal. Like, because now it's like, hey, if you can, establish an artist without a label, if you end up doing a label deal, you're doing it under very different circumstances, because when you don't need a label, that's when you can actually get a good deal from a label.
Yeah.
Back then,
I find the labels just don't, just aren't working. I won't name label or artist, but we had a woman on and she took off on TikTok, and has 1 billion streams on one song. And they were like, "Oh, this is amazing. Let's put out some more records, and what we're going to do is we're going to put it up on TikTok and hope it sticks." And it didn't stick because they didn't do marketing. They didn't do anything. And then they went, "Oh, I think we'll drop her." It was the greatest day of our lives when they dropped her. Now, all of a sudden, we're releasing records, releasing music. I don't understand the need. And a lot of artists are really not seeing the need for labels anymore.
Yeah. Do you know who BB No Money is? Do you know that? He's a hip hop artist from Vancouver.
Right.
And he rented our soundstage to do a music video, I don't know, 6 months ago. And it was one of those names, I knew the name, didn't really know him. And I went and looked. I'm like, Jesus Christ, this guy's got, I don't have my phone in front of me, but like a shocking amount of followers.
Yeah.
Shocking amount of followers on. And so I was really excited when he came in because I kind of went and I said, "Hey man, nice to meet you, blah, blah, blah." And I'm like, is the label thing? I said, "Look, I'm not a hip hop label, so it's not me pushing my label on you. I want to be clear about that. I'm really just curious about like how you do stuff." I was like, "Do you have any interest in a label?" No. No. It was like that straightforward. Yeah. And I get it. Like, I don't know. It's so interesting now how it's all changed. Like even with us, 604 as having distributors, what I need out of my distributor now is kind of nothing. Like back in the day, they did everything like that Theory of a Dead Man record, that first one with Universal, they did radio, they did marketing. It was still CDs then. So they pressed the CDs, they got them into the stores. Now we're with Warner, and I love Warner. I have a great relationship with Kristen. It's been a great situation, but the truth is there's very little I need from them or any distributor now. I mean, we do most of our own marketing in-house. Pop radio still is the domain of the majors.
Yes.
So that's something I still need them for. We use them for some country stuff, radio stuff, which is great. But we certainly don't use them for alternative. I don't think they'd even want us to. I don't think that's their game. And it's just so interesting now because really, I mean, we still do a pretty healthy physical business. And they're great with that. And we need them for Vivo because if you have a lot of, and I hate Vivo. I detest Vivo. I never use it anymore, but we have had to use it. And the problem with Vivo, as you probably know, is once you're on there, if you want to pull a video off, you lose everything. You lose all the streams.
Yeah.
So example, I've got Call Me Maybe. I own that video. That video is now, I believe, at 1.6 billion views, which is, let's put aside how insane that is. If I pulled it off of Vivo, it goes to, I think it resets at 0. So I'm kind of stuck.
Yeah, you are.
So I need a major to sort of help me, navigate, and they've been, great with that. Yeah. But it's just so interesting now. Like, I wonder when this deal is done with Warner, maybe I'm done with the majors completely at that point.
Well, I mean, I think you figured out most of the business and you probably don't need it, hire somebody to do that job and that probably cost you less money and be more effective.
Well, there you go. That's it. So, but do you remember the band that we first did a deal with?
I thought it was Brundlefly.
There you go. Give the man a prize. That's right. It was Brundlefly. I have this very vivid memory of meeting with you in a restaurant with the band. It might have been the Fairmont, somewhere downtown.
Right.
And that was still early enough. I mean, if you were there 97 to 2001, I'm guessing that was towards the earlier part of that tenure. So it was probably 97, 98.
Probably 98, I think. I think it was 98.
And that was very heady stuff for me, man. Like I was still pretty new. I mean, I sort of started to transition to entertainment like 95.
Right.
I remember it being a big deal. I mean, for me, it was like, wow, I can't believe I'm doing deals with publishers. It just was amazing to me. And nothing really happened with that band. But of course, that's the way it usually goes.
That's true.
But, still, it was significant to me. And I don't feel like I did a lot with you at Universal Publishing. But again, I just wasn't doing a ton of publishing deals. I certainly remember seeing you because, every summer I'd be in Toronto and
we'd have a chat. Yeah.
I'd come in. Yeah, I'd always come and be obnoxious, wander around the building and.
Lovely. Simkin's in the building.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And I don't know if you could talk about it. I don't have any knowledge or recollection of this. So if I'm asking something controversial, I'm not doing it intentionally. Why did you leave Universal?
They decided I didn't like the job.
They decided you didn't like the job.
Yep. Bottom line is that they figured out how to, because I didn't answer to Canada. I answered to the United States, but sat in the Canadian office.
Right.
And then generated money that went directly to the United States. And Randy figured out a way, well, probably it was more likely it was
Mark.
Sarah Scott and
or Sarah.
Mark
Yeah.
figured out a way that, hey, we should be getting some of this money. And so they started pushing the money through Randy. And then eventually, I think they just felt that there wasn't enough going on in Canada and that, Renzer was my boss. And then, somebody else became my boss. And I think they just thought that they could do A&R through the US, through New York or LA. And so they just cut the overhead, and that was the end of that. Saved all the money and cut the overhead.
Who was anybody even like figurehead after you in that?
No, Marino went in for 6 or 8 months. Half A&R and half publishing, but he wasn't a publisher and he knew it and wanted out. So he left. They hired a kid for 22 minutes. That was it. And they've never had anybody back in that chair basically since I've left.
Was that Chris Corliss?
Corliss worked for me.
Worked for you.
He was gone by then. Corliss had gone over to
that thing he did with Spicaluck, wasn't it? Or the
well, he started with Spicaluck, and then he came to me, and then he went to this other company. Name's escaping me now, but yeah. So now, and he's out on his own trying to make it work. But yeah, that was basically it. They just shaved it off, and they've got nobody representing anybody. They're not looking for artists out of Canada. Nothing.
I haven't been in that building in a long time. The last time I was at Universal was in the old building, was at Victoria Park.
Yeah.
Oh, and it was depressing because at that point they had cut so many staff, and because I remember in the early days, when I was first there, I think the first time I was ever in that building was a trip with. It was after the merger, the Polygram Universal merger, and Matthew Good had fired his manager Frank Weipert, and why did he fire him?
No, I said, oh, yeah, I forgot. I haven't heard that name in quite a time.
Well, at the end of the day, Jodie, the eagle has landed and the bear is in the forest. That's my Frank Weipert imitation. Thank you. By the way, I love Frank. So that's just to be clear about that. But they flew me out there to help Matt find a new manager. So we went and we took meetings. And one of the meetings we took was with John Reed, not as a manager. He had been brought in after the merger.
Right.
But I'm getting confused though. Was John Reed the head of Universal briefly before Randy? And then because John was like one of those professional presidents.
John was the head of publishing. No, John was the head of Poly, wasn't he? I think he was Poly or MCA. One of the Poly. It must have been Poly because Randy and what's his name above him for a while, Ross were. Oh yeah. They were MCA and Reed was Polygram.
Right. So, but man, I mean, there were for many, many years, that was hustling, bustling, you'd come in that building and even down in the lobby, or you'd come in the lobby, man, there'd be people all over the place. And then, the last time I went, it was like a graveyard. Half the offices were storage. In fact, there was this giant Matthew Good, not a poster, but like they had this beautiful, like painted version of one of his albums that was just lying in storage. And I remember saying to, it might've been Kristen or whoever was still left there, is like, can I take that? Like, yeah, sure, take it, And now it's in our studio. But was very depressing. Like,
well, when I started there in whatever year it was, we were at some gathering or something. I was with my ex-wife at the time, and we were having a conversation with Randy, and Randy, it was hustling and bustling. And Randy turned to her and is like, we have never not made our year. As a matter of fact, every year just gets better and better. I don't see any downturn. Bonuses are good. Life is really good, blah, blah, blah. Within 5 years of that statement, maybe 4 years of that statement, as you say, Napster came along and piracy came along and suing customers came along and trying to sell singles for $23 or whatever it was. It's like, what are you people? And it just got worse and worse and worse. And yeah, I remember being in that building and it just emptying out. It's like, where's so-and-so? Yeah. It was depressing.
Well, the vibe changed too, because early on, people would be playing music in their offices and it was fun and it was exciting. And boy, did that change too. I mean, the last few times I was in that, and I'm talking about Universal just because they were our distributor then. I probably could say the same thing about any major, but
Sure.
The last few visits at Universal, nobody looked happy. Everybody just looked overworked and freaked out and waiting to get fired. It was horrid. So yeah, it's so interesting. And so how do you feel about the business these days? I mean, you're still right in the middle of it. How do you feel about it in terms of, is this a business that's dying? Is this a business that's just at the beginning of a new growth spurt? Do you have some sense of that?
I don't know what to think of it anymore. I've been more excited about being in the business than I have been in many years. When I was finishing up at Universal, I wanted to quit. I had had enough. I had hated where music was going and where they were pushing me to sign. It's Universal. So sign big things, sign, this pop and sign this and that. And not necessarily where my brain was. I understood why, but it just wasn't where I wanted to be. And I was watching it decline and I was thinking that it wasn't so good anymore. When I got into the indie world or back into the indie world, I found it much more exciting. And I find that there is a lot of great music out there. There is a lot of great artists out there, writers out there. We're getting, I think, the upshot of people pushing against the majors. We're getting a lot of guys coming out of deals or are being offered deals by label or by big publishers and not taking them because they want to come here or to another smaller company where it's more hands-on, where it's more effective. Same with the indie labels. I'm finding some of them are getting artists because people just don't want to deal with it. So I find it kind of refreshing. I find we're busy. We have cuts all over the world with various writers that we handle. You won't know their names here. They don't get cuts in Canada. Canada's a very difficult place, as you know, to get anybody to cut a song. Everybody's so self-contained.
Yep.
It's getting better, but again, even the pop artists at the majors are signing. Nobody knows who they are. They don't break. So we work around the world, and so to us, it's very exciting. I really love it.
Same here. I gotta say, in a weird kind of way, the way the business is now is a lot more fits the model I had created anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, when after Call Me Maybe, we bought the building we're in.
Yeah.
You've been here, right?
I've been in that building. It's a lovely building.
Thank you. Yeah. So, it's really become exactly what I was hoping it was going to become, which is a hub for, the creation and dissemination of content.
Right.
When I built it, it was largely a reaction to my distaste for the major label system. Berry Gordy had made a famous quote once, about Motown. He said, we make the music in the back and we sell it out the front. And that was kind of the way I approached this. It was like, I want a place where we can make content, disseminate it into the world. And we're doing stuff now. Even last weekend, we had a show here on Saturday night for one of our, I started an ambient label. And so it's for one of our ambient artists. put 60 tickets up for sale, sold out, boom. So right away, our costs were covered. Everything was covered. But for me, the big prize is the fact that we film these things and record them.
Right.
And everything in the soundstage gets patched right through to that little mountain console I have. And so everything sounds amazing.
Good,
So we have this great show, great vibe. Everybody had a good time. But, more importantly for me, we're going to come out of that with this really cool video that we're going to be able to put up on the YouTube channel, and with some audio that, if the artist is cool, we'll put out as well. Right. We do that with our comedy division as well. We have a comedy show the last Friday of every month here. Sells out every time, covers our costs. We record it, we film it, and then we put up clips. And that's been one of the main reasons the comedy division is doing so well.
Wow,
is the clips are doing so well. So to me, it was like, I want to create this hub. I want to give the artists this great palette. They still have to paint the masterpiece. Unfortunately, that's not my gig. I can't do that. Yeah. But I want to put everything, empower them to do that. And so far, it's been amazing. I mean, just the ability to crank out content nonstop that doesn't cost us an arm and a leg and is still super high quality. That was kind of the vision, and it's really played out even better than I was hoping.
Yeah. It's probably a way better business model than selling plastic things to people. It's that's great if you can push enough plastic things out the door every week or month or whatever. But this could be, and if you're doing it properly, is perpetual income, and perpetual viewership. It's interesting.
It is. And I mean, that's why I'm so glad that I was going to say had the wherewithal. I don't even know if it was wherewithal, just the gut feeling 21 years ago to exclude digital from that deal, because yes, financially it's helped us. There's no doubt about it, but it's more than that. I think it really forced us to learn digital and to understand it. And that's made a very big difference to the way this company operates and has the whole time. So yeah, I'm pretty optimistic. I mean, it's become a very niche business. Am I ever going to have another Call Me Maybe? I mean, I sure hope so. I'm certainly working towards it, but if I don't, it's not the end of the world. And,
right. I don't know how much Toronto or whatever, been to this section where I live. I live on the east end of the city.
Which is what's the east end? Like the beaches?
The beaches, yeah.
I lived in the beaches. So I lived on Kenilworth.
Okay. So I'm just west of Kenilworth. I'm at Queen and Kingston Road.
Nice. Yeah.
And right at the end of my street is a venue called History. I don't know if you've heard of this venue or not.
No.
It's a 2,500 seat room. It's owned by Live Nation and a guy named Drake. I walk out my front door. I literally walk out the front door, walk across the street because I can't see the marquee unless I go across the street. I look at the marquee and I say, who the is that? And I look it up and they go, 90 million views. I'm like, I don't even know who the that guy is or that girl is. It's unbelievable. And my point is sort of to your point, I think it's become more niche. I think it's become a smaller thing. I don't know how many big arena bands we're going to produce anymore. I think this is what we're producing. 1,000-seater to 2,500-seater. You can make the living off of it. There's going to obviously be the ones that are going to break through and get bigger and bigger and whatever. But I think a lot of it is going to be this.
100% agree. And I think even if I think about Carly Rae Jepsen's career, it's interesting that way because there she is. She has the biggest hit, one of the biggest hits in history. And the funny thing is she hasn't really had a hit since then, but she can tour anywhere in the world. And I don't think it's just because of Call Me Maybe. She has been able to reinvent herself as kind of a tastemaker sort of artist.
Right.
And you know what? It's a nice career. I mean, she can go to Europe and she's playing, 3,000 to 5,000 seaters. So is it a stadium career? No, but who gives a to be able to just make a living, a half decent living and is a pretty amazing thing.
Isn't that what artists really want? I mean, that's what I want for my artists. I want them to make a living. Yeah, I want everybody to be really rich. I want them to make a lot of money because then I'll make a lot of money. But isn't it that you want your artists to do what they love doing, which is making music and being able to sustain themselves and just have a living?
100%. I say that all the time. Somebody says to me, like, what's your definition of success? That you're making a living.
Yeah.
That you don't have another job.
Yeah.
That you don't have the job at Staples and then, to support, to pay your rent. Like, if you could pay your rent and do more, buy a house one day, have a family. I mean, whatever it is that your personal goals are, and sustain that with your music career. To me, that's the huge victory.
I look at, there's a couple of bands I looked at. One, I think completely did it wrong, and I think he was kind of foolish. And the other ones I think did it really, really right. And the ones that I think did it really right was this band called Hanson. And, they had that song. That was a big song.
Mbop.
Mbop. And made them multimillionaires, did really well for them. And then they disappeared. Well, they haven't disappeared. They started their own record label. They still tour. They still do the equivalent of about 500,000 records a year. They play small arenas. They don't have to put up with the and they're making a really good living.
And so what's your link to them? If you know this, you must.
I just think that it's a brilliant model on what they did was that they learned how to use the system. They used it well. And now they're just making a living, making music and making their own records and doing it on their own schedule and on their own dime.
Okay, so did you know that we licensed a record of theirs?
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's interesting. So, and it goes back to Carly Rae Jepsen. So it was right around the time of Call Me Maybe. Right. And we ended up licensing a record from them. And part of the deal was Carly opened for them on the Canadian tour. And this was right as Call Me Maybe was boom. And in fact, at the Vancouver show, because this is when people were flying in from all over the world to woo us to sign. And at the Vancouver Hanson Carly show, Jeff Fenster, remember Jeff? Yeah. Jeff was there. And what's her name from American Idol, who was also an A&R, Carla DeGuardia?
Oh, Carla,
yeah, I'm having a brain fart, but you know who I mean.
LaGuardia. Yeah.
Yeah. So there they are. So, I mean, I'll never forget backstage after the show, there's like Fenster, there's DeGuardia. It's like, what the but yeah, so I have actually a pretty good relationship. They're very nice dudes. They're very nice gentlemen. We still talk about doing stuff together. In fact, Josh Ramsey from Mariana's was they're mutual fans. We've been trying to get him out to where do they live? Utah, I think.
I think they're Utah boys, right?
I think they're Mormons. Yeah, but he's trying to get them out. We're trying to get him out. They're still trying to do it. So yeah, they're very nice dudes. But that's interesting that you say that, and I don't disagree. I mean, I think that's a great model. I mean, it helps to have that original hit to sort of sustain stuff.
Of course.
But nonetheless, it makes a lot of sense. And yeah, I mean, the other thing to me that's so interesting about the business now is like take a band like Theory of a Dead Man, where, we signed them 21 years ago. Yeah. And we did a typical deal, which at that time was, I think, 6 records. That wasn't unusual then. It's more unusual now. Back then, it wasn't unusual at all. In fact, some bands did 7 or 8 record deals. We did a 6 record deal, and they got all the way through the deal. They delivered 6 albums to us. Wow. I tried to keep them at that point, and I lost them. And you know what? They're decent guys. In fairness to them, they were very honest about it. And it was like, look, we want to go for the big money. Right. We got kids. We feel like we've earned it. And you know what? Kind of hard to disagree with that logic.
Yeah. It was funny. I was, went down to Niagara Falls over Christmas, paid extra for the Falls view. Only it was foggier than you could see.
You don't get your money back in that circumstance?
Yeah, no, apparently not. But anyways, at the casino was Theory of a Dead Man. And I was shocked, not that they were playing, but I thought that they had changed their name to Theory.
I think they kind of go both. I don't think they fight it when people call them Theory of a Dead Man. They prefer Theory.
Right. Okay. I just was like, oh, that's weird. I thought it was, theory. But
Well, but the interesting thing is like, and this is what I was not expecting. So they made that decision. I was disappointed, but you know what? I respected it. It was fine. Well, here's the part I didn't expect. We make so much more money off of them now that they're not on the label. Because A, we're not spending any money on them. B, people consume music differently now. I'm old enough, and I hate admitting this because I'm so old now. I went to the Fleetwood Mac Rumors tour. Now, I was in grade 8, but still, I went to the Fleetwood Mac Rumors tour. I was a huge fan. I had bought the 2 preceding records, the one with Rhiannon, can't remember the one before that. So, and this was vinyl.
With the lineup with Stevie Nicks and whatnot.
Yeah. So I was a fan before Rumors.
Green lineup.
Correct. I sort of started being a fan with the Stevie Nicks version.
Right.
And, so I had a couple of albums, still have them, vinyl. And so they announced this tour. Hey, we're touring in support of Rumors. And I'm like, I'm going. I beg my parents, they buy a ticket. I'm like, all right, I rush out and buy the new album. Well, I didn't go and repurchase the 2 albums I already bought. Why would I? I already own them. I bought the new one.
Right.
Well, now nobody buys anything that way. Yeah. Theory of a Dead Man announces a tour. I'm high-fiving with my CFO because the entire catalog
rises.
It rises every time they tour. And it's changed so much for me because I'm less concerned now about, like, if we have a band and we do 2 records and it doesn't work out or they decide they want to leave or whatever, it's not the end of the world anymore. Like, the catalog is so much more meaningful now because of streaming. Like, it's really amazing when Theory goes on tour, and they tour a lot. God bless them. They go tour in Europe. Holy
yeah.
It's crazy, same with Dallas Smith, which was a very similar story. We did 5 albums with Dallas, and same thing. He was a mensch about it. He was a very decent guy about it. Let me know 2 years before he even delivered the last record. Hey man, when I deliver that last record, I just want you to know I'm starting my own label. You know what? God bless him. He's entitled. How can I begrudge somebody that? But now it's the same thing. He goes on tour. Boom.
Everything goes up. Yeah.
It's unbelievable. If I really wanted to make more money, I would stop signing bands. I would just focus on the catalog. But you know what? Where's the fun in that? For me, that's just not fun.
It's the balance. Well, having said that, the publishing companies, as you're well aware, are all out there buying catalog and doing this and doing that. I'm in a very similar boat. We're currently, trying to raise capital so that we can buy some stuff. The company's gotten to a point where I'm sort of hitting my head on the ceiling because I need more money to be able to purchase catalog or to, get into some of the other things we want to get into. So all of these people are doing it. But one of the things that all the publishing companies are buying is the master rights. And they're not buying it to market it or blah, 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 blah. They're just doing it just literally to reap the rewards of the sales when Poison says they're going back on tour. Yay! That's why they're buying the masters.
Yeah, I did one of those. I mean, I think it is public. I always have to be, when I'm talking about law stuff, I always have to be careful. But, Nickelback did one of those, eh?
Right.
And that was a hell of an experience. I mean, that deal took a year and a half to complete.
I can imagine.
It was the most complicated deal I've ever done.
More complicated than a publishing deal? Are you kidding me?
More complicated than the Brundlefly deal, believe it or not. Yeah, holy it's interesting. I mean, and of course, interest rates have now kind of killed those deals a little bit, but yes. They seem to be coming back again right now.
Yeah.
I'm actually shopping somebody's stuff. And I mean, that's what Michael McCarty's doing. Michael's buying stuff outright. It's an interesting model. And I get it. I get why that's of interest to people.
Well, it's the model's changing too. You've done publishing deals, and you know what that looks like. And you fought for certain things, and no, you can't have this, and no, you can't have that. And trying to get this and that and whatever. But, the models are different, and, people are willing to sell, number one. So, for example, I could theoretically come to you and say, hey, Nickelback still owns 50% of their publishing. Why don't you sell that 50% of the publishing to me? So they've already sold 50% of the publishing. Now you buy the other. They still have the writer share. And so now you've gotten a huge injection of cash, and you would never have done that before. But now people are like, yeah. Or they're going in and even buying a piece of it. Like, okay, don't sell. I'll buy 10% of it.
Yep.
Or they're coming in and they're going around, and SOCAN and BMI still don't allow it, but buying the writer's share. And that's something that was completely unheard of 20 years ago, completely unheard of. And now it seems to be, something that people are willing to do.
It's fascinating. And it's, certainly one day Chad and I are going to sell the whole ball of wax here.
Yeah.
I feel good. Like, I feel like I'm going to run this thing for another 10 years or so.
Yeah.
And then I think at that point, and I'm very lucky to have Chad as a partner because, number one, I know a lot of people love hating on Nickelback, less so now. I feel like they've had a bit of a renaissance, but, the truth is, whatever you think of their music, they're the nicest goddamn guys in the world. They're fair-minded. They're family guys. They're just really lovely human beings. And Chad as a partner is incredible because, he's wealthy, which means he's not looking at 604 as like a thing to pull money out of.
Right.
And a lot of record companies end up going down because people get a little funny about that.
Yeah.
Like, my salary is a joke. Like, I'm going to make my money when we sell this thing. I'm not I don't want to gouge my own company.
Yeah, no, you keep yourself alive and live a decent life. But yeah, why you gouge? There's no need to gouge.
No need to. So, he's very proud of it. And, his attitude has always been like, hey man, one day we'll sell it and we'll make our money then. Yeah. No rush. And, I think he's very proud of the company, and, which is really,
look, you guys have built a good company, and I'm sure there's even people that are surprised that Chad's a partner in it, because people just don't know. They don't read, as you said earlier. They don't look into things. It's not that hard to find out.
No,
but it's a very reputable company, and yeah, when it comes to an end with some of the copyrights and whatnot that you have in there, it's going to be fun.
We had a couple of offers during the pandemic.
Oh.
And I was actually shocked at how much we were getting offered. Now, a lot of that's Call Me Maybe. A lot of that, the value of that alone is, I don't want to be tacky, but, it's so ridiculous.
Yeah, no. I understand what the value of the song is. As a publisher, I understand that value. That's incredible. I love the commercial.
Which one? There's so many right now.
It's the one in Canada that I've seen. I haven't seen
the gum commercial.
Gum commercial, yeah, that's fun.
So what's funny about that is the same company owns Orbit Gum and Extra Gum. I can't remember who the mothership is, but it's like one of these food companies, and it might be Wrigley, and it owns both brands. They licensed it for both brands. So there's the elevator commercial. Is that the one you're talking about? Where the guy comes
the girls in the car, that kiss at the end.
So that's one of them. The other one is the guy in the elevator. Like, if you go on YouTube and Call Me Maybe Extra Gum, you'll see the other one where the guy comes dancing out of the elevator. It's funny that a company would say, we're going to use it for both brands.
Right.
And they've just renewed both of those. So, like, it's insanity.
Brilliant thing.
There's a Malibu rum ad. I don't know if you've seen that one.
No.
Dude, it is. I'm going to email it to you later. It is so insane. I think, and I don't know, I know what they paid for the song, an outrageous amount, but it looks like the most expensive music video you've ever seen.
Really?
I think it's a $3 million adventure they went on. And they also just renewed. But in the last year, it's been licensed. I swear to you, there's not a day that goes by where there isn't something. It might be something small, compilation in South Africa, might be something weird, a soap commercial in Poland. It might be something awesome. Like, it just got licensed for the new Paul Thomas Anderson movie. And that's where I kind of go, God damn, I mean, that's just a director I love. And for us to have a piece of something in a movie like that, like those are the moments for me where I really, it's funny too, right? Because the money's great. And I'm not going to say it's not, but there's other stuff too that's super, like, you know, I was just saying this to somebody recently, for reasons that are complicated and I won't bore you with, we own a Tommy Lee record. We own the rights to the Tommy Lee, Tommyland is the name of the album. 604 owns the rights for that record in Canada. And it's partly because Chad worked on it. It's a long story, but and it's a funny story too, because we were still at Universal then. And Sarah Norris, who you know, God bless her, big Motley Crue fan, huge Motley Crue fan. And she's like, oh, this is amazing. And we're going to sell 1 million of them. And this was back when it was still largely a physical business. And I was nervous. I said, look, I love Tommy, but I don't know that we're going to sell. I'm not feeling as confident as you are. And we ended up negotiating a deal with Mark Jones where it was like, we weren't going to be responsible for returns. I said, that's the only way I'm doing this. If I'm not going to be held, holy shit, was that a good move on my part? For, I'd say 10 years, our storage room was mostly Tommy Lee CDs, which we finally were able to get rid of. Tommy's a nice man. So, I mean, I don't, you know, no slag on Tommy. But the reason I bring it up is there's one song on that record that's produced and written by Andrew McMahon. Do you know who that is?
No.
He was in the band Jack's Mannequin. And Something Corporate was his first band on Interscope. I think he's the best. I think he's one of the best songwriters of his generation. I'm such a massive fan of this guy. And you know what? Okay, the Tommy Lee record was a financial disaster, but just owning the fact that we own the rights to an album where my favorite writer has a cut, it's a weird little, it gives me a lot of satisfaction. It really makes me happy. And I still put that song on all the time. And, you know, once in a while it's like, hey, I own this song. How awesome.
Awesome is that?
You know, Call Me Maybe is different because like with Call Me Maybe, it's like, you know, I'm just happy that my kids aren't going to have to worry about too much.
Yeah, no, it's funny, you know, being a music publisher, and there is a big change from when we did the Brundlefly deal. You know, if you could get somebody to put their song into a commercial or into a TV show, it's like, how'd you get that to happen? Now, as you know, everybody's like, you got to get me sync. Get me sync. That's all I ever hear. Get me sync. Why didn't you get me sync? Bah! And, you know, I keep saying to these people, look, I can get you sync. You want $100 sync? You want a $200 sync? Fine. I'm not going to do it, by the way, because I have a bottom value of at least $750 aside. So, you know, if you really want to get a sync, get a radio hit. What do you mean? I said, who the hell was Carly Rae Jepsen before she did that song? Who the hell was Billie Eilish? Who the hell was whatever? Yeah, Carly probably got like $100 syncs from whatever she was doing before. Now, get a radio hit, folks.
Well, it is true. I mean, it's not like I'm out there pushing Call Me Maybe. It's a one-way.
It's a one-way. Yeah.
It's a one-way thing coming in. The sync thing's always been, it is an area our company, I'm not going to say we struggled with it. We've done fine with it, but it's a mystery to me still. And it's one that we've never fully cracked. And we've tried everything. I've tried hiring someone internally. I've tried doing deals with outside companies. I've tried doing deals with outside companies where I give them everything. Here's the entire catalog. Go nuts. I've done deals just for specific bands. Nothing's ever fully worked out. And, you know, like, for example, we have a band called Fake Shark on our label. Great band. They're doing really well right now. And we did a deal. I don't want to say who because I don't want to come across, but we did a deal with a company. And man, they got us an Apple Watch commercial within 2 weeks. And it was a big one. And then nothing. A year, nothing. Not one placement. Why? I don't know why. I have no idea why. It's a mystery to me still, you know, or even recently we got, out of the blue, we got approached one of our country artists who's a young woman named Danielle Ryan, and she's doing okay. She's not a household name. She's not famous, but she's an up and comer. She's, at the beginning. We get approached by Olive Garden. We do this huge placement, and it came through an agency who said, "Hey, we think we have a use for you." Olive Garden has asked us, and we're like, absolutely. And the thing that was funny to me is they didn't even use any of the lyrics.
Yeah.
They just used some of the background, and we did this massive placement. Why? I don't know why. I mean, I wish I had a reason. Like, the thing with me is I love, when you have a success, it's great. But the way my brain works is I want to understand why. Why did that happen? How did it happen? How could we repeat it? How can we make that happen again? And with Sync, I've never been able to get a full grip on that.
No, you and me both. It's the one area of the business I don't like. I personally, I get it, and we work it, and we're part of it, but I don't work it. I have somebody who does that for me because I'm not going to deal with that. I find it's, they have their favorites. They go back to a lot of the same people that they always go to. There's, it's very insular.
Yes.
There's no rhyme or reason. Plus I don't know how many songs are in the world, 90 million songs or something. And everybody wants that one spot. How you got that? I know how you got the Wrigley phone because you had a big song, but how you got the Olive Garden? Who the knows? The magic of that day happened, and you got it. We go through this all the time, and my guy comes in and we do every 3 months. We go through the entire roster, update, see where everybody's at. Okay, Dante, how many pitches did you do this time for the band? Oh, I did 45 pitches. I did 28 pitches. I did 16 pitches, because he's looking at it, because a lot of the bands will say, well, why didn't you get me anything? It's like, well, your songs are about killing babies. I don't know. I'm making it up. They don't want songs about killing babies.
Yeah.
Oh, but it's a really good song. Yeah, no. So we work it all the time, but how do you land it? I don't know.
How do you land it? That's the question. I want to, because I've already kept you for an hour here. I want to give you an opportunity to talk about your company a little bit, to talk about what you're up to these days. So, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you're doing at CSS, or I always say
CCS.
I always want to say CCS. I don't know why. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing at CCS these days and what you're excited about.
Yeah. It's funny. Everybody does the CSS thing. Everybody does it. It's quite funny. And we have discovered, when I did it, so when I left Universal, I was done, man. I wanted out. I was trying to get a job anywhere. I was just like, this. I've had it with the music industry. It was 2011. It was at the bottom before digital came in, before Spotify came in. It was a disaster. So I was like, I'm out. So I registered a company only in case, so that I could get funding from the government and various sources. So I registered this company and I don't care. I'm never going to use it, so I don't care what the name is. So I just said CCS, and that's my kids' names. That's all it is. That was it. And then I told you the story about sleeping on Mike Denny's floor, and it just blew up from there. So the company was always was a lot of people in my head. You were in my head. Some of the lawyers that I work with were in my head. Some of the artists that I knew over time were in my head. And so I called it CCS Rights Management because I wanted to be able to ensure that the artists that I was working with were getting their money from all sources. So we started a neighboring rights division and, obviously the publishing division. And we tried to just really encapsulate their money and find their money from them. That was the whole point of it. So we grew the company to a certain size, whatever. And then it became very much an administrative. We were signing young acts and stuff. And, we didn't have a lot of money. So when we first started, you start with what you can get. And then hopefully your charm and good looks. And I have neither of those. So we hope it works. And we started building more and more artists and shedding the other ones and building more and more. We also started working a lot with production companies, so people who own the music and film and TV. We work with Blue Ant Productions, we work with 44 Blue, we work with Spin Master, who has Paw Patrol. And so we really became this very much administrative company. And then we had this group of kids. And, they'd be saying, who are you signed to? CCS Rights Management. It was getting a little cumbersome. So we started a new division called Day Tripper Music Publishing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And that was really just to sort of, it's the same team, it's the same people, but it just is a little bit sexier. We have merch, we have whatever. People really like it. I can go anywhere in the world, Jonathan. And I went, hey, Day Tripper Publishing. Oh, yeah, we've heard of you. Well, you haven't heard of me. But they know Day Tripper, right? And it's in their head. They're like, oh, yeah, it must be a thing. So, so we have that. So the company is predominantly that, heavy on the administration, the back end, and then we really pride ourselves in being creative on the sort of the front end of it. Sync, creative, song camps, co-writes, all that kind of thing. We also do quite a few JVs with labels who are looking to start a publishing division, but have no idea what it is. And know that, like you said earlier in our conversation, felt gross just going, I'm a publisher now, I'm going to take your publishing. So, we've gone to a couple of different labels and said, well, you don't need to do that. You can actually say, hey, you know what? We'd love to do this with you guys. We have partnered with an actual publisher who has actual publishing credentials, who has a worldwide reach, who has a full department. They can do all the work for us on the back end. I'm the front end creative guy, says label guy, because I'm finding working together. And we find that it works really well. They're able to build up some business, build up some equity, own some equity, and work with their artists a little bit more wholesomely, with us doing a lot of that back end work for them.
Right. How did the Glenn Gould thing happen? And I remember that was the first thing I remember reading. Like I remember seeing, something in the press or some industry thing, like announcing that you had done some deal with the estate, and I was like, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is cool. We are the administrator of that property. It's actually owned by Primary Wave. They bought it from the estate a few years ago. What happened, weirdly enough, again, Mike Denny was working with the woman who because she was working with another act who never did anything, whatever. But she was the liaison for Glenn at Sony Records. And she worked with him and the estate years and years and years, and knew everybody and whatever. And they were looking for somebody to administer because they had no idea what they were doing. So he approached me and said, would you administer the catalog on our behalf? And of course I would. I mean, I was a young upstart company, no background, no visibility or whatever. And to be able to get the Glenn Gould property was something.
Oh, it puts you on the map. It puts you on the map, right? Boom.
Yeah. So that was a really special property.
But he didn't write stuff, or did he write stuff?
He adapted stuff and arranged stuff. So you can actually get an adaptation credit at SOCAN, right?
Right. So, yeah.
Yes, it's Bach or it's whoever, right? But if you listen to, and I'm not an aficionado enough to hear the real difference. If you said this is Bach this is Bach and this is thing, I can hear it. But if it's just on, I'm not sure what I'm listening to. But people can. And so when you put on a Glenn Gould record, people go, that's Glenn Gould. Right. So they know his sound. They know his style.
Yeah, because he makes those weird noises when he's playing.
And that's kind of cool, actually. There is the unwelcome guests, uninvited guests, have done a remake of Glenn Gould's music where they sampled it. And they actually have Glenn playing piano in a band. There's a video of Glenn playing piano, the way he plays piano, and it's like an electronic band, and they've done 10 or 12 songs now over time. It doesn't do huge amounts, but it just shows you that Gould is influential, and he continues to grow. He's still the biggest selling classical pianist in the world.
Yeah, I bet. I mean, it's interesting. Like I you know how Spotify does that thing at the end of the year, the Spotify wrap, and then you sort of see what you listen to. So interesting to me. My top 10, I think Tame Impala was maybe number 10 for me. Everything else was classical and ambient. No rock, no pop. And I listen to a fair bit of rock and pop, but the thing is, I mostly listen when I'm working. And when I'm working, I can't have lyrics because then my brain goes somewhere else. I need music that's instrumental in order to be able to work. Classical, ambient. Those are the playlists I'm listening to when I'm doing work. But boy, I've grown to love that kind of music and both classical and ambient. And that's why I started Intraset, the ambient label. It was very much a function of the pandemic, because during the pandemic, I was spending so much time alone in my office. And these playlists were kind of keeping me company. And at a certain point, I kind of went, well, that's interesting. Like, I'm listening to this, like, there's like a playlist, like what? Like Brain Food. I don't know if you know that playlist. And I'm like, I don't even know who these artists are. I mean, I'm looking at these names going, who the is this? And it's like, well, how interesting that there's a whole genre of music that isn't really about personalities. It's not really about who the artist is. It's about the genre and the mood. You throw on one of those playlists, like Focus playlist. I don't know who the those artists are, but they've got millions and millions and millions of streams. And that's when I kind of went, I like this. And we started the Ambient label, which so far so good. In fact, God bless Exclaim. Alex Hudson just happened to be in Vancouver, came to our show last weekend, did a lovely review in Exclaim. It was like the headline story yesterday in Exclaim. So now the Ambient label is getting a bit of attention, which is nice. But I really, really love that kind of music. And I listen to a lot of Glenn Gould. So you're welcome.
Thank you very much.
And then Day Tripper's a Beatles song, right? Isn't it a Beatles song? Sure it is.
Yeah, it's a Beatles song. No, that's not. Well, yes, it is. And no, it isn't. The reason is that
you like to get high during the day.
Exactly. What's my name? Jonathan Simkin? Jesus Christ.
Hey, I resemble that comment.
No, 3 years ago this March, actually, my sister passed from ALS.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. And we were looking for a new brand, as I was saying, getting away from the CCS. That still exists, but that is more very much corporate. And we wanted to get into something else. And CCS is the girls' names, my girls' names. And we always feel like the group of us that work together are very family, and our writers, we keep it in a very family. So we wanted to have something family. And we were trying to think whatever. And my sister was dying. And so I didn't know where, I wanted to honor her with something. I didn't know what to do, whatever. So we came up with a few names, and I was going to go with Capricorn Music Publishing, but there was a Capricorn in the 70s.
Yeah, the Allman Brothers.
So I was like, okay, I don't want to explain that and do all that, right? So we looked more, and we were looking into it, and basically the story is that the day she was born, the number one song in Canada was Day Tripper, and that's where it is.
Oh, interesting. That's
which
that's
I
really
got to her before she died, so that was cool.
Yeah, that's nice. And you have 3 daughters?
Yeah.
Good God. I got 2 sons, which is insane enough. But it's funny. I don't know why it reminds me of something that. Do you know Neil Osborne from 5440?
Of course.
So he's got 2 beautiful daughters. You might even know them because we both have had things to do in the music business.
Right.
And he was at our old studio. This was years ago. And he's like, "Oh, do you have kids?" I said, "Yeah, I got 2 sons." I said, "What about you?" He said, "I got 2 daughters." He said, "Man, I really envy you." And I said, "Why?" He said, "Well, you only have to deal with 2 I have to deal with a whole world of.
I know. Believe me, I know.
How are you with sort of getting older? How is that for you? Is that I don't know. I mean, do you care? Do you think about it? Does it?
I have a lovely girlfriend, and she is just dreamy. She's amazing, but she's always going on about we're getting older. I'm like, yeah, I know. I'm not. Things hurt. I'm a little fatter than I should be. I'm trying to get back in a little bit of shape because I'm woefully bad. But you know what? I think this industry, number one, keeps me young.
Yep.
It keeps me thinking. It keeps me working with young people.
Yep.
I get to travel. Yeah, I'm 60 this year. I'm freaking old. Yeah, I'm feeling it a bit. I am. Absolutely I am. And I know that, it's getting like shorter and shorter every day, but I'm fine with it. I really am. I like the wisdom. I like where I'm at. I like that I don't have to do all the work anymore. Somebody else does a lot of that grunt work. I'm enjoying it. You?
Mixed feelings about it. Like I'm driving my wife crazy. I don't know if you remember my wife. You probably met her because she's been in and out of the business. I'm driving her nuts because I've kind of been like, you know what? All I hear in my brain every single day from the second I get up is tick, 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 tick. I feel the ticking of time now. I feel it. I can almost visualize it on a daily basis. It's like, I'll be sitting in my office like, oh, what's that over there? Oh, it's the end of me. And it's right there. So I'm constantly feeling like I have things I still want to accomplish. I have things I still want to do. I have things, and sometimes she's like, that the legacy, and that's not really why I don't look at it that way. It's just that to me, life is about production, is about producing, and maybe that's a sick way to look at things. Maybe that's a up way to look at things. But like I told her, I said, I am done with a lot of frivolity now. I'm cutting it out of my life. I'm not going to parties. I'm not going to parties unless there's a reason unless I actually want to be there. I'm not just going. I'm not going on vacation just to go on vacation, which of course makes her nuts because she's like, we've worked so hard. Now I want to go and like travel. I'm like, go. I'll pay for it. God bless. I just don't want to go. I got to do, man. Like so I'm feeling there is a sense of urgency now in my life that maybe wasn't there before. Like we're putting out a new Mariana's Trench record this year. I'm treating it like it's the last record I may ever put out. And it's not, but it's like, that's how I'm kind of approaching these things right now. It's like, man, I may not get another chance with this band. I may not get another chance with this or that. I just want to keep producing. So, yeah, I mean, it's not like I sit around going, oh, I'm going to die. We're all going to die. I mean, I knew that. I've always known that. I've always been very aware of my mortality. That's not something new.
A little bit more awareness these days. That's all.
Well, it's very practical now. It's like you have a limited amount of time and that's it. Like
look, I am at 60 years of age. Look at McCarty, who's I think about 68, still doing it, still looking for it. I'm still looking for new bands. I'm still looking for new people to work with, new ideas. I'm trying to raise capital to continue the growth because I am with you. I love it. I think it'll change in 8 to 10 years and I'll go, okay, I think I don't want to stop, but I'm going to take a different approach to it. But for now, no, I'm good.
Well, look at Bruce Allen. I mean, Bruce is 78 and he's having one of the best years of his career because he took on the Offspring last year. And boom. I mean, and I'm friendly with him and I'm like, I'm sort of mixed minds about it because on the one hand, I'm like, I have nothing but respect for this guy. How incredible to be still doing it at 78. Yeah. Then there's part of me that goes, this guy's nuts. Like never quite sure what to make of it all. But
I used to say, you'll know I'm retired when you read the obituary in the paper.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
I don't know if I'll go that far anymore, but
Well, I don't know. I guess I don't have too much more I have to accomplish. I'll never get the Walt Grealis Award, so I guess I get that. I guess I should just put that out of my mind because I off too many people, and the people who sit on that board, so what if I've been responsible for all these huge hits and bands? I shouldn't have said. I've said too many things that people off, and no Walt Grealis for me, I guess. But
That's not.
luckily, I'm more concerned about making sure I get paid than making sure I get the Walt Grealis Award. So, I'm
not in it for awards, my friend. That's not why I'm here.
No, I agree. Jodie, thank you. This has been fun.
Yeah, no, thanks for reaching out. It was a pleasure to get your note the other day, a couple of weeks ago, and I'm thrilled to have done this. Yeah, and it's nice to see you. I haven't seen you, I think, in 4 years. So it's
believe it or not, I have lost close to 50 pounds.
Have you?
I don't know if you could tell from my face, but about 4 or 5 years ago, my doctor read me the Riot Act and basically said, you are killing yourself. Right. You've got diabetes. You have high blood pressure. You're about 70 pounds overweight. And I'm telling you this now because I think you need to hear it from somebody. And I bought a Fitbit that day. Since that day, I've done, for the first few years, 10,000 steps a day. I'm up to 14,000, which I do every single day, regardless of where I am, what I'm doing. If it's 10 o'clock at night and I'm in my office and I'm dictating and I haven't got the steps, I'm pacing the building and dictating. And it was getting a grip on my diabetes because I've got one of ththose glucometer things in my arm. Yeah. Changed my life. Absolutely changed my life. Because, you sit there and you kind of go, well, like, example, I eat a bowl of cereal before I go to bed. I've done that since I was a kid. I don't know, just a habit. I used to eat Cheerios, not Honey Nut Cheerios, just plain Cheerios, which in my brain wasn't a horrible thing to eat. Well, that glucometer, I would eat a bowl of Cheerios. Boom. My blood sugar just would go through the roof. I had no idea. Then I said, okay, well, I'm going to try something else. I tried cornflakes. Nothing. Doesn't impact me at all. So guess what? I eat cornflakes now. And that's what happens. As you go along, you go, oh, I can't eat such and such anymore. Okay, can't eat it anymore. Oh,
and I think you have to, my sister, her partner has a son, and her son has had diabetes for years. He's not that old. He's like 35. He's a bigger man. Diabetes, wouldn't listen to the doctor, wouldn't do what he was supposed to do. And now he's got one less foot than he used to have.
Ah, Jesus.
Yeah, because it went gangrene and because he wasn't paying attention. And, what's his name? Oh God, I can picture his name, his face. But anyways, there's a guy here in Toronto who's an artist, visual artist, whatever, and publicist and whatever. Anyways, he lost both of his legs and then lost his life to diabetes.
God damn!
You can't around with that. You need to take it serious.
No, and I'm so glad I did. And I've got other health problems. I had a scary health thing this year where they thought I had oral cancer. And I actually had to have surgery. Now it turns out it wasn't cancer. But just takes a couple of those things happening where you kind of go, okay, I dodged that bullet. There's going to be one that I can't dodge, but I'm going to do everything in my power to put that off as long as possible.
My dad used to, when he was probably about 70, he died when he was 82.
Yeah.
I'd go over there and he'd same thing every time, and he'd pull out a measuring tape. And he'd pull it out to 70 or whatever he was at the time. He goes, so how much further do you think I can pull this thing up? Right? And it's true. So you know what? You can only pull it out so far. Yeah. And hopefully, before you can't pull it anymore, that you have as good of years as you can. Because let's face it, they're going to decline. So let's have as many good ones as you can. Take care of yourself now.
Yeah, exactly right. All right. Well, then let's end it here. Thank you again, Jodie.